In the next few videos, we are going to learn about Marvelous Designer. If you guys have not downloaded this software program yet, I suggest you go to www.marvelousdesigner.com and download this here. This program is used for creating cloth, fabric, and it is used in animated films and video game development for 3D character design, 3D art, and 3D models. And it's not just used in the film and the game industry, but it is also used in the interior design and fashion design industry. So this amazing program is definitely a game changer. It allows everyone in different types of industries to create cloth and fabric in a fast and very efficient way. So yeah, go ahead and download this, guys. And when you guys open Marvelous Designer for the first time and you experience any crashing and you have AMD Graphics Card and you don't have NVIDIA, yeah, you might have some issues on that. So if it's crashing with your AMD Graphics Card, this is what you need to do to fix that. Okay, you just have to go to settings. You go to user settings here, and then you're gonna go to graphic options. Okay, and in the graphics options, you need to make sure that use VBO is turned off. Okay, the VBO is basically the vertex buffer object. It's an OpenGL feature that provides methods for uploading vertex data to the video device for non-immediate mode rendering. And it seems to have, depending on the Marvelous Designer that you have installed in your computer, when you have AMD Graphics Card, if this is turned on, you might experience crashing when you are simulating the cloth. Okay, so yeah, I suggest you turn this off if you have AMD Graphics Card. Okay. So I just want to inform you guys about this issue that you might run across and how to fix it. And let's go ahead and move on. Here I want to go over the basics of Marvelous Designer. I'm going to talk about the user interface, and I'm also going to talk about how to navigate in the program. And then later on, we are going to create a simple clothing that we are going to simulate on the character. Okay. So when you first open Marvelous Designer for the first time, you're going to see this beautiful interface. You're going to see that there is the menus here. And you have of course, the regular file where you could save projects, open projects, create a new project, import, export. You have the edit menu where you could undo, redo, copy, paste. You have the 3D garment menu and the 2D pattern menu. Now, you have the 3D pattern, which will allow you to use the tools that you could utilize to manipulate the things that you need for the 3D view. And the tools that you find in the 3D garment, a lot of them can also be found on the tools here. Okay. And like I said, these tools, you could use them to manipulate the clothing that you will see in the 3D view. So this is the 3D view, and this here is going to be the 2D view. This is where you're going to see the 2D clothing pattern, where you're going to be creating some flat 2D shapes, and then you're going to be seeing those shapes take form on a 3D character, and you will see it simulate on the 3D character in this 3D view, which is pretty cool. So when we get to that. And of course, you're going to see that this is going to be the tools that you could use for the 2D view. All right, these are tools you're going to use to manipulate the 2D patterns. So the 2D pattern menu here, a lot of the tools here can also be found on the tools on this area here. Okay. You have sewing menu where you could edit the sewing, do different types of sewing, such as segment, free sewing. Okay. You have the materials menu where you could add textures, graphics, buttons, zippers, and other materials. You have avatar menu where you could manipulate your character. Avatar is basically the character that's going to be on your 3D view. Okay. You have script. You could add any Python script in here. You got display where you could manipulate how elements are displayed on your 3D and 2D view. preferences. So if there's anything that you prefer to do as you're working, you could alter it here. Now, if you go to Gizmo, you need to make sure that you have world coordinate checked on. This will make your life a whole lot easier when you are moving the clothing pattern in the 3D view, okay? If you have the screen coordinate or the local coordinate, you might have some issues. So I prefer world coordinate, so I suggest you guys go ahead and also do that. Settings, this is pretty cool. If you guys go to user settings here, if you guys go to view controls, now you're gonna see on the preset here, if you go ahead and click on this arrow, you're gonna see Maya, 3ds Max, StyleCAD, tablet. So there are some presets here that you could use if you are, let's say you're used to using Maya to navigate, right? Then you could choose Maya so that when you are on the 3D view, you're going to be able to navigate there, same as you would in the Maya program. Same with 3ds Max and so on. I'm just going to leave it to just a regular, okay? Or, you know, you could always like mess around with these and put your own custom controls there if you need to, okay? And of course, we have the help. Okay, if you guys got any questions, you guys could go there. You could even go to Marvelous Designer website. Now, if you guys look, we have some tabs here, okay? We got the library tab, history, and the modular configuration. If I go to the library, okay, we're gonna see that this panel pops up, okay? If you don't want to see it anymore, of course, you could click on this arrow here. You make it pop up again by clicking on the tab. Okay, so inside that library, you're gonna see some pre-made garment, avatar, hair, shoes. You double click on the shoes here, you see, and then you're gonna see some folders, and then you got some shoes here that you could double click and they will appear here on the 3D view, and you're gonna see the pattern here on the 2D view. So some pretty nice presets that you could take a look at. Let me just go and click on this arrow. Now we also have the history tab, which is of course, you have some history that you could always go back and undo or redo. You have modular configuration, you have the man and the woman folder. If you go to the man folder, we got some pre-made things here that we could use. We got some jackets, we got polos, t-shirts. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to t-shirt here. So we got the basic. If I go ahead and double click on that and just wait for it to load, and we could see that there's some presets, pre-made basic shirts here that you could use, okay? And you could even see that a pattern here has been created. And let's go ahead and X that out. And let's go to the library and let's go to the avatar. Then let's go ahead and create an avatar in our 3D view so that we could go ahead and navigate. I'll show you guys how to navigate in these views, okay? In the 3D and the 2D view. So go to the avatar, double click on it, and you could go ahead and choose any avatar that you want. You could double click on it. I'm just gonna click on this female, double click on it, and you should see it pop up here. And we just click on this arrow to just go ahead and X that out. So how do you navigate in the 3D view exactly if you are using the default Marvelous Designer controls? To zoom in, zoom out, hold the Alt key and left click on your mouse. With those pressed together, just drag your mouse. The left click on your mouse and drag your mouse. If you want to rotate, orbit around here, you could just, it's right click on your mouse and just drag your mouse. If you want to pan to the left, pan to the right, pan up and down, it's middle mouse button, okay? Again, that's basically it. So right click to rotate, middle mouse to pan, alt left mouse button to zoom in, zoom out, or you could also scroll to zoom in, zoom out, which one is easier for you. And if you guys look at the window here, 2D window, you could of course scroll to zoom in, zoom out. You could also hold the Alt key and the left click on your mouse and drag your mouse to zoom in slowly, okay? And you could pan, hold the middle mouse button pan to the left, pan to the right, up and down. Okay, and that's how you guys will navigate in the program. All right, that's how you get around these 3D view and the 2D view. This is pretty cool how you could have these two views here, and then later on you will be amazed of how pretty nice this everything simulates here. After you create your shapes here, your 2D shapes, I think you'll find it so interesting how it will just seemingly flow onto the character, the clothing. Now I want to talk about the tabs that you will see here. Okay, we have the scene. Okay, the scene tab is basically everything that is on your 3D view and on your 2D view. Okay, so there's the 2D pattern design that has been created here, and of course we got the avatar, which is this. Okay, everything that's going to be in your scene, everything is here. Okay, you have your fabric tab, and on that fabric tab is the material that you're going to be using to add on to your clothing pattern. Okay, and if you click on that fabric, you're going to see the property editor in which you could change the color, the material for your fabric. You can even add texture on your fabric material. You could change the physical property, which is the way it will simulate on the clothing will simulate on the 3D character. You can manipulate all that. You can even change the reflection, the roughness on this. Okay, so all the properties for your fabric are here. If you click on it, it's here. You got the button tab, which is the button that you could add on to, of course, your character. And you see here, I just went to the foot. You could press F to focus, and you just zoom out. As I mentioned before, you have the default button here. All right, which is, if you click here, there are also some properties for it that you can manipulate for your button. You got the button hole, and every time that you click, if you click here, you're going to see some different properties as you see on the button. Compare this, and if you go to fabric and you click on the fabric here, you see how it's a different information that you see here as when you go to here. See different information that it shows. Top stitch, if you click here, you got some top stitch properties that you could use, that you can manipulate for your stitch. Okay, and so those are the tabs for the object browser. The properties for the fabric, you're going to be adjusting those a lot. And also want to show you guys that you also have this that you could play around with. You got, if you click here, of course you have both the 2D view and the 3D view there. If you just want to look at the 3D view, you could click here. Okay, oopsie. All right, and you could, if you want to look at just the 2D view, you could also just look at the 2D view. And if you want to look at both, just click here. All right, and of course, if you kind of mess up your layout, you could always click on the reset icon there. Okay. And another thing, if you see that there's also some icons here. So if you click on these icons, you hover your mouse over this one, you got your textured surface, which will show the texture of the character. If you go here, you have the monochrome surface, which is just the clay color, or just a shaded color, shaded mode. And you could also see the wireframe here. And if you hover your mouse over this one, this is basically the garment fit map. You got the texture surface, which these will essentially all the options here. We're gonna go over these later as we create our clothing, okay? Because we need clothing here on our character and something to simulate on a character in order for us to be using these. But these are some things that we're gonna go through that will allow us to view the pattern in different ways, okay? That will allow us to display the 3D garments in different ways. And that's basically it for the user interface. I've shown you guys how to navigate here in Marvelous Designer. I've shown you guys talked about the user interface that you see here. And next up, we are going to go ahead and move on and do a simple project so you can get a hang of this program. Now we are going to create a simple clothing here in Marvelous Designer. We are going to create a tank top and then later on a pants. Now, the first thing you need to do is you need to go to the internet and find a clothing pattern. And I went to Google Images and I typed in tank top cloth drafting, and these are the images that are showing, and I actually like this one that I found right here. So I actually saved that, and also it's good to not only save the actual clothing pattern that you see, but it's also good to have an actual real world reference of the person wearing that type of outfit that you are trying to create. That way, when you simulate the clothing in Marvelous Designer, you know exactly how you want it to look, how the folds to simulate on the body, and you are using a real world reference, which will help you a lot in making things look much more realistic. Okay, so this one here, I'm going to also just save this here. Okay. All right, now what we're going to be doing is, instead of using one of the avatars here in Marvelous Designer to create our clothing from, instead of using these, we are just going to be using something that's coming from Zbrush, because generally that's what you would do in the film industry or in the game industry. You would export out your OBJ from Zbrush or any program, 3D program that you're using, sculpting program or 3D program you're using, then you're going to put it here in Marvelous Designer. Now, of course, if you're probably in the fashion industry, then it's probably okay to use these avatars here, but what we want to do is want to follow the type of workflow that's in the film and the game, or in the game industry. Okay? So we're just going to go and to ZBrush. Okay, so in ZBrush, I go in my light box and go into the tools here. I'm going to use one of the base meshes here. So I'm going to use a NYX human male, double click on it and turn off the light box, click and drag into the scene. Okay, and I'm just going to go to my subtool, and I have different subtools here for this here. I'm just gonna go ahead and clone this mesh where we just have the body. I'm gonna go clone it and then click on the clone mesh. So I only have one subtool. There's no base, there's no skull, none of those extra tools included. So let's say this is my sculpt in ZBrush. All right, I'm done with my base mesh, and I just want to put it into Marvelous Designer, and I want to go ahead and start designing my clothing patterns from there. So I'm just gonna go ahead and export this as an OBJ. I'm gonna go to export, and I'm just gonna leave it as the default name, hit save, and then back to Marvelous Designer. We could go ahead and go to file, and let's go ahead and import that OBJ that we exported out of ZBrush, NYX human male average, and load type open, load as avatar, and automatically add arrangement points. And I will show you what arrangement points are as we go through the video, create our patterns. And auto scale is fine. We want it to match as what we have here in ZBrush, because later on we're gonna put in all the clothing that we have done in Marvelous, and we're gonna put it back here onto our character. Okay, and everything else is default. Let's just press OK. Okay, and there's our Nick here. Now the character is very, very bright, and I actually want to make this avatar a little bit darker, and I want it to have like a skin tone color, because this is hurting my eyes looking at this bright human base. So I'm just gonna select this avatar, select the character, and as you can see, we have a little issue. There is something here that we need to do. As you can see here, when I'm selecting, they're all in separate polygroups, and that's because if you go to ZBrush and if you go ahead and turn on polyframe, you see how there are different colors here. So if you're on Marvelous Designer and you're trying to select your character, it doesn't select it as a whole. So when you are exporting out your OBJ here out of ZBrush, it's best to make sure that they're all in one polygroup. So to do that, Control W on your keyboard. So now they're all the same color, and I'm just gonna go ahead and export this out. Export, and I'm just gonna replace the one that I have just recently exported out. And going back to Marvelous, and I'm just gonna go ahead and create a new. Don't save. Just select the avatar and press delete. And let's go to File, Import OBJ, and let's go and click on Next Beverage. And same thing, press OK. Alright, so now if I click on Nick here, everything is selected just like how it's supposed to. And I do want to go ahead and change the skin tone of this. So with the avatar selected, you're going to see the property editor here, and you're going to see the mesh information and the material information here. Let's go ahead and go to the color section right here, and we could change the color to a skin tone, any skin tone that you want. Okay, so something like that. So this is actually easier in the eyes. I'm gonna press OK, and then just click off in the background. Okay, so you guys should have saved your tank top clothing pattern. So this is what I have, okay? And we're going to put that in here in Marvelous Designer, the texture, that clothing pattern. Let's go ahead and create a rectangular polygon. So while you're on the 2D tool area, click here. Click and drag onto the 2D view, the rectangular pattern. Alright, and then you're going to see that's been created also on the 3D view. Whatever we have created on the 2D window, you will also see that translated onto the 3D view. Okay, and we're going to assign the texture that we have downloaded from the internet. We're going to assign this here, this pattern onto this rectangular shape. And to do that, let's go to our fabric panel here, and you could see that this panel, this material is actually assigned to this rectangle shape. Okay, and with this selected, you will see that there's going to be the basic parameters rollout, and on that basic parameters rollout you will see the texture, and you guys will need to click this little icon with 4 little squares. Click on there, and this is how we're gonna plug in our texture. Okay, plug in our photo. Let's go ahead and find the picture of your clothing pattern, tank top cloth drafting here. There you go, and you will see that the photo here, it looks like it's been tiled. It's just it's been repeated, the photo. Okay, and in order to fix this, we need to go and click on edit texture, or letter T. Okay, so this little icon right here will allow us to fix our texture the way it's placed there. Click here, and then just go ahead and click on the plane. Okay, and you will see that there is, on the top right, you're gonna see a segment, 3 segments, 1, 2, 3 segments there. Okay, if you hover your mouse over the middle segment, it will turn yellow. This will allow you to scale the texture, okay, proportionally. So let's go hover our mouse on the segment in the middle here and the top right, and click and drag. So you see it's getting bigger, and what you're gonna do is click and drag inside the plane here, and you could move and position your texture in place. So this will allow you to basically edit your texture. Okay, and as you can see that there's this arrow line here, this type of line, and if you hover your mouse on top of it, you will see that you could actually rotate this also. Let me just undo that. You don't need to rotate it, but yeah, reposition it in place just so that you could see the pattern much more clearly. Okay, so after you have repositioned it, let's go ahead and start creating our internal shape here. To do that, we're going to be using we're going to be using this a lot actually when we're creating our clothing. The internal line. This will allow us to create a 2D line onto our 2D view. We're going to be able to trace out our clothing pattern here and create a 2D line using this. Okay? If you guys have used 3ds Max or Maya before, this is very similar to using the spline tool. So click here and let's go ahead and start creating. Click. Now what I'm doing is I am just clicking the corners and I actually ignoring the curves here. Okay, just go click the corners and you could hold shift to draw out a straight line. Shift and click will allow you to draw a straight line. And make sure that the first point that you have created is also the last point you have created to close out the pattern, to close out the line. And what I also like to do is I like to go to my fabric material here and go to the opacity area here and bring down the opacity. That way, my texture here that I'm seeing on my plane here it's a little bit transparent. It's a little bit faded. That way I could see better my internal line, okay, as I'm creating them. Okay, so back on the internal polygon line here and moving on to doing this part. This is going to be the front view of the tank top. Once again, just ignoring the curves and just focusing on clicking on those corners. Okay, so we got the back here and we got the front. Okay, now of course we need to curve these out. Okay, at the beginning you're just clicking the corners, but now after you create the basic shape, it's time to curve them out. And to curve them out, we're going to be using this tool right here, and that's going to be the Edit Curvature tool. Let's go use that. You hover your mouse over the segment and you can just click and drag. You could go ahead and curve this out and trace out your shape. Okay, so I think everything is good now. Now what we could do is select each of our internal shapes here. You could select more than one by holding, click here, hold shift to select multiple shapes. And then you could go ahead and right click, click on clone as pattern, and then just click it here on the side. So now we have created an actual clothing pattern out of these internal lines, outlines that we have created. And so now we don't really need these anymore. Okay, so you just select the plane here, and when you select the plane, it selects everything including the internal line that you have created. So you can just go ahead and delete that, don't need it anymore. So now we have our back for our back pattern for our tank top, and we got the front one for our tank top. Okay, and right now you could see that the texture is still there, and we don't really want the the photo here, the texture that we have previously included. So we're gonna just go to the fabric material, and we could just go ahead and delete the texture by clicking on this trash can right here. Alright, so now it's just gonna be plain white, and let's just go ahead and bring back the opacity up again. And what we can do is for the front part here, let's go to the segment, edit pattern. So with this edit pattern tool, you could go and select points here, and you could move these points individually, or you could select more than one point. You could select multiple points and move them. Okay, and you could also select multiple segments. You could hold shift and select multiple segments. You could go ahead and double click, and then it selects the entire clothing pattern. Okay, So this here, you're going to be using a lot this edit pattern tool when you're selecting and manipulating your clothing pattern. What we need to do is we need to select the segment right here in the middle, and then we could right click and click on unfold. Okay, so now we have the front part of our tank top, the entire whole of the tank top in the front. And now we could also do the same thing for the back. Let's select the middle of the middle edge here in the back, right click and unfold. Now keep in mind, you're only allowed to use unfold if you have a completely straight line. If you have a curve in the middle, you're not going to be able to unfold it. Okay. All right, now I like to just arrange this better, something like this, and we could go ahead and bring this closer to where our guy is, and we could just go ahead and scale this down a bit because obviously it looks too big. Okay, maybe something like that. Yep, something like that would be cool. And what we could do in the 3D view is we could go ahead and position this where our character is at. Okay, and an easy way to do that is if we go to our avatar here, display. If you hover your mouse, you're going to see some more options here. Okay, you're going to go click on show arrangement points, or Shift F on your keyboard, and you will see these blue circles here. Okay, now depending on which circle you click, these patterns that you see that you have created, these clothing patterns, you will be able to move these clothing patterns based on these points. Okay, so let's say I click here on this front part of the tank top, and let's say I want the front part of the tank top to be, of course, where it needs to go, right here in front of the body. So I could click on any of these points here, and it will show me where exactly that pattern will be based on the circle that I have that I'm going to click. So I'm just gonna click right here. So now it has moved it. It's a fast way to move things in Marvelous Designer. Okay, now this is what I like to do at the beginning. I like to use the arrangement points and just quickly move things right close to the character, and then later on I could move things manually if I need to. And also this right here, the back part could go right here, and you don't want the clothing to overlap the avatar. You don't want it to overlap your character, so you need to just kind of move that out. There you go. And now I could just turn off those arrangement points, turn off show arrangement points, and we could go ahead and sew this up already. Okay, now you could sew these in the 3D view, or you could sew them in the 2D view. You could work on both. Okay, I like to actually work in the 3D view. To me, it's easier, and I know some artists who actually like to use the 2D view, but as you gain more experience with Marvelous Designer, you will see which one you like working better when it comes to sewing things. Okay, so how do you sew? You're gonna have to use this tool right here for sewing. So this is the segment sewing tool. Click on that, and you could go ahead and click on the segment. I know I want to sew this segment to this segment here, and then I'm gonna sew this segment to this segment, because you could see that they are different segments, because you see the points that's being divided by it. Okay, so they could be sewn to each other there. We can partner them up. Okay, so with the segment, with the sewing selected, I'm gonna click, just gonna click here. You can see by the blue line that I am clicking on it, and then I'm gonna click on the next one, which is this. And you could also see as I am sewing that you could see what's happening in the 2D view. If I hover my mouse and click here, you could see what I'm sewing it onto. Okay, so I'm sewing basically this to this. Okay, all right, and I'm gonna click on it. Now if you see that it created a sewing that has a crisscross, you see you don't want any crisscrossing there. So in order to fix that, you go to the edit sewing here, or press B on your keyboard, and you go right click on the segment, any of the segment, either here or here, and then you right click, reverse sewing. So now you don't have any more crisscrossing. So you don't want any crisscrossing when it comes to your sewing. And going back to the segment sewing, I'm gonna sew from here and onto here. And as I mentioned before, you might wanna, as you are sewing in the 3D view, you also probably wanna look here in your 2D view to make sure that none of these are crisscrossing. And there you go. So this is not crisscrossing at all. Click here to here, and here to here. So if you guys look at my 2D view right now, it looks like there's gonna be crisscrossing if I click on the next segment. So I'm just gonna slightly move up. Okay, so probably like this. There you go. Click here. There you go. And now I'm gonna sew the top parts. I'm gonna sew this one to this one. I want this to connect together. Okay. So I'm gonna go click here and here. And once again, there's some crisscrossing, so I'm just gonna go to edit sewing, right click, reverse. Gonna sew this to this. I'm going to reverse sewing. All right, so everything has been sewed. Now let's go ahead and check out what we have. Let's go ahead and simulate this. And you could simulate this by clicking on this arrow here, okay? Or you could click on the space bar, but let's go ahead and do that. Click, and there you go. And we have a little problem here. You could see that this part of our mesh here, it looks like it got thinner, and we don't want that. We want to be able to keep the edges in shape there. So let's go ahead and just turn off our simulation button here. Turn that off. Now we could go to edge selection, edit pattern, and let's go ahead and select all the edges right here. So basically this edge, these edges here that are in yellow, those segments, those have to be selected, and also these, hold shift and drag. So these edges, these segments need to be selected. And now with those segments selected, we could go to our options here for our property editor, and you're gonna see seam taping. Make sure that you turn it on, okay? So seam taping will allow the segments here to stay in place, so it won't get thinned out. Let's go ahead and click on seam taping on, turn those on. And now we have an option for seam taping called width. Let's go ahead and bring the width down to 5. So now we have 5 millimeters of seam taping here, which will allow us to keep those edges in place so it won't thin out. All right. And let's go ahead and simulate again by clicking on this button. As you can see, it's not thinning out anymore, and exactly what we want. And another thing I want to do, I think that it's a little it's too long, because this here on the picture is the type of tank top that I want. Okay, so it's not that long, and it needs to be a little tighter. So that's why it's good to always have some real life reference to see exactly what you're trying to get at. Okay, so I want to go to my segment here, edit pattern, and I'm just gonna go ahead and select these segments at the bottom, and I'm just gonna go hold shift and drag to move them up. All right, good. And what I want to do also is I want to select these, and I want to move it. Apparently I cannot move them at the same time because it all goes wonky. So I could just move these individually. I'm gonna select the point here, and I'm going to click and drag up, and as I hold shift to keep it in a straight line, hold shift and then right click, and this will pop up. As you move and you right click, you will be able to specifically add a distance that you want to move it up. Okay, so if you want to be accurate with it, let's say I want to move it up maybe 44 millimeters up, and press OK. And I want to do the same thing for this one. I could go click and drag and then right click, and this will pop up, and I think I put in 44. Okay, so now I know that this is going to be, this segment length is going to be equal to this segment length. And we could make sure, we could even look at our line lengths by right clicking the background here in the 2D window, and we could click on show line length. So now we could see that this is 135.6 and this is 135.6. So this is pretty accurate, okay? And that's good. This is exactly what we want it to be, as accurate as possible. And we want to move this up also. So what I want to do is I want to do to my calculator. I'm not really a math whiz, so I like to use calculator on this because I want, since this is 135.6, I also want this to be 135.6. So I'm gonna go and 135.6 minus 90.5, so 45, around 45. So I want to move this point up over about 45. Okay, so I'm just gonna click, drag, and right click, and I'm gonna type in for distance move. I'm gonna put 45.1. Okay, so now you could see that this is 135.6 and this is 135.6. And it's good to be accurate because this is where we're going to be sewing it. If you have 135.1 here and then you have 135.6, that's okay. It's almost close. That's okay. And it's the same thing with this. We need to go ahead and move it up. What did I put there? Oh my goodness. 135. I'm sorry, guys. I should have taken note. I know it's something 44 point something. 45.1, okay. Okay, so 45.1. There you go. All right. Well, that's okay. That's pretty good. And now we could go ahead and simulate again. And as it's simulating, you could even, there's this hand tool. If you hover your mouse over your pattern, you could like lift them up, and you want to create some extra folds, you could do that. You could kind of help the simulation and massage the pattern a bit. You could do that. And also we could tighten this up, so we could go to our transform pattern here, select all our patterns, and we could scale this. Hover your mouse over the corner here, and this will allow you to scale down or scale up. And this here will allow you to rotate, which I don't really use, but use this here, and then scale, and then simulate, and good, like move it up. And another thing is you could turn off the simulate. I could just hit the space bar, turn that off, and you could go to the fabric panel, click on the fabric material here, and then you're gonna see the physical property. Let's say we want to simulate our tank top here like it's actually made out of cotton. We could do that. We could go to the preset here. There are different ways here that you could simulate your clothing. There's different presets. You could simulate like cotton, like a knit, like nylon or silk. So think about how you want it to be simulated and choose what you want. I'm gonna choose cotton stretch, so it's gonna be like a stretch cotton right there. And then you could click on simulate again to see. All right. So as I like to massage this a bit just so that I could get some more folds here and there. And you could see that it's actually quite jagged, all right? Because we're working in quite low polygons right now. If we turn off the simulate and if we go to our textured surface here, this option, we're gonna see that there's a meshed option here, which will allow us to see the wireframe. If you click on that, you see how you could see the wires. So right now, this is not a lot of polygons. If you want to see more folds, what you could do is you could select your pattern. You could select your pattern through here. You could select it through the 3D view, but select your pattern, and then you're gonna see in the simulation properties, there's the particle distance. The lower the value is for the particle distance, the more geometry you will have for your clothing, thus the more folds will appear on your clothing after simulating. Okay, so if 20 is not enough, you could bring it down to 10. Of course, you gotta see how much your computer could handle. The lower the value for the particle distance and the more geometry that you see here on your mesh, the more memory RAM it will take, and you might notice your computer, your software start to lag. Okay, and then if you don't want to see the wire anymore, you can just go back and go to textured surface or Alt-2 on your keyboard. Alright, and then you could go ahead and simulate again to see, and you will start to see that there's going to be more folds because there's more geometry to work with. Okay, and I think I could tighten it up a bit, which will make the folds stay there more. Yeah, I could tighten up. Could tighten this up. So I could, let's see, click and drag. Actually, I want to do this here. Click and drag. Right click, and let's say I want to move it just 20 and press OK, and it's going to be the same thing for this, and drag. So just left click, click and drag, and then right click so that you could enter a specific value. Left click, hold shift, right click, and then enter 20. Alright, so it's going to be tighter around here at the waist. And let's see what we have. Alright, so yeah, something like that. Something tighter would be good for me. Alright, that's good. Exactly what I want. And let's say I add a little bit more folds here. So I like to have a little bit of folds there also. So just gonna massaging this. Okay. And I could just turn off the simulation, click off in the background. So this is going to be the racer tank top. Now let's go ahead and create some pants for this guy here. If you guys go to google.com and type in the Google Images pants drafting, there's pretty nice clothing pattern that you guys could use. This is the one that I'm using here, classic jeans. So this right here is the one. So I'm just gonna go save it. Or you could find some other jeans here. What you want is something that has both the front and the back, okay? And yeah, this one is what I'm using here. And also, it's best that you have, of course, real life reference all the time, okay? It's good to have the pattern so you could easily trace it out, but it's also good to have the actual jeans there that you could refer to, okay? So you know what the folds are gonna, how the folds are gonna look. All right, so now what we need to do is we need to create a rectangle. Same thing as what we did with the tank top. We're gonna start out with a rectangle, and then we're gonna add the texture to it. We're gonna add the photo that we find online onto that rectangle, okay? And then we're gonna trace it out with an internal polygon with an internal line, okay? So let's go ahead and create a rectangle, which is great. You should create it anywhere in your 2D view, preferably somewhere near your clothing area. And let's go ahead and just create a new fabric material. And for this one, the new one, we could just go ahead and call it, I think this is the new one, fabric too. You could rename it by double clicking on the text and calling this one jeans, okay? And I'm just gonna make sure that this color, I'm gonna just change it to maybe a darker gray and press OK. And what we're gonna do is, let's make sure that this is assigned to our rectangle. Okay, and you can do this by just clicking and dragging. Click and drag. There you go. And of course, this fabric is for the tank top here. As you can see, it's white. And I'm just gonna go ahead and rename it by double clicking and call this one tank top. Okay. And while we're on the jeans fabric, let's go ahead and apply a texture there. Let's go to the basic parameters rollout, textures, click here, and find the photo that you have downloaded for tracing out for your clothing pattern. Actually, I have it here. Yeah. Okay. And as you can see, it's definitely tiled as usual, and we're gonna have to fix it using the edit texture. Click here and then click on the plane, and on the top right you're gonna see the segments. Hover your mouse over the middle segment and then just click and drag to make it bigger, and then click here and just reposition it. Okay, something like that, maybe a little bigger. Okay, now we're gonna just simplify this. There's a lot of patterns here for the jeans, and we could just trace out this one. We're gonna do that one, we're gonna do the front, we're gonna do the fly, and we're gonna do the patch pocket. Okay, and everything else we are not gonna use those because we'll create a simple project. Okay, and it's still gonna look like pants, which is good, and you guys are gonna learn the basics of this that you need in order to create more complicated stuff. And let's go ahead and go, before we start creating our internal line and tracing this out, we can go to the jeans here, material, and let's go ahead and bring down the opacity a bit if you haven't done so already. Yeah, I think that's and let's go to the internal line. Actually, let's go ahead and do it again. Yeah, if you are on edit texture and you try to manipulate this, the opacity, it only shows the effect on the 3D view. So just make sure that you click off that and you could manipulate it, and you could see it being changed also on the 2D view. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and trace it out. Click here, starting off here and then on here. And I'm ignoring some of these points. Just going to just grade all the way up here and here. This one, hold shift to make a straight line, and then click on the first point. Okay. So this is my first trace pants for the back part of the pants. And as you can see, there are no curves for now. We're gonna go back to the curvature later. Let's go and do the patch pocket. Hold shift to create a straight line. Let go of shift. And just, this is the slanted one. There you go. And let's do the front. Now for the front that you see here, we could make this one a separate pattern, and also this one is also going to be a separate pattern. Okay, and then we're just going to be sewing these together, so that way we could have a little nice seam here. Okay, so let's go ahead and, using the internal line, start creating this. Once again, we're just ignoring the curves. And for this, I'm just gonna start out here and here, here, and hold shift for a straight line, go up, and then I'm gonna make sure that it's right at the number 6 here, and then click on the first point that I clicked on to close it out. Okay, and then the next one is going to be the fly now. Okay, so now if I go to the transform pattern, select that, hold shift, click, 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 and click. So these are the patterns that I have. And of course, we need to go ahead and make sure that they're curved out, or they need to be curved out. So let's go and I'm just gonna click off in the background here. Go into the curvature, edit curvature, and then just going to curve out those areas on the back pants here that needs to be curved. Okay, good. And also, let's not forget this one and this one. Good. Let's see, let's make sure it's aligned as much as possible. The better it's aligned, the better it'll be. There you go. And also this and this here. Cool. Click and drag. Yeah. And also here. Okay. I think that will do. Now what we could do is go to our transform pattern, click, hold shift as you select all the internal line shapes that you've created, and we could right click on it and clone as pattern, and just let's go ahead and just place it on the right here. And let's go ahead and we could just select this rectangle, and everything inside is also selected, and let's just go ahead and delete them. And right now we have the texture is still there, so let's go to our gene material and delete the texture through here. Click on the trash bin here. Okay, so now we got that is just a gray color. And now I just want to crank up the opacity all the way up again. Now it's time for us to go ahead and select all these, and we could move them here. Okay. And we could go ahead and place this. These here are going to be behind here, okay? And we're going to have to right click and flip horizontally. So this is going to be the back part of the pants. So the way this is going to be wrapped around the leg is it's going to wrap around like this area here. You see that curve? It's going to be basically wrapped around here on the thigh, the inner thigh, okay? And this part here is going to be around this area of the leg, okay? And of course this here is going to be on the side, on the outer part of the leg. And then these here, so remember you could hold shift and select all of them at the same time, and then click on one of them, and then you could move all of them at the same time, and then move. Okay, you could do that. That's a way for you to move things. Or you could also use the show arrangement points as I shown you previously with the tank top. Whatever is easier for you. Depending on what you're creating, you might want to do it manually, or you might want to do it using the arrangement points, okay? And I'm just gonna go ahead and just rotate it. I think in this case I'm able to see the pattern clearly when I'm doing this. And rotate a bit. Okay, so we can go ahead and begin sewing. Let's go to our segment sewing, and we could sew this to this here. So I want to see actually where it is at in my 2D view. So just hovering my mouse over here and then looking at my 2D view, and I could see the 2D view here. I know where it's at, so it's going to be here, and this is going to be there. And looking at it, it looks like definitely this segment is longer than this segment, and I don't think I want to sew those two together unless they're equal in length. Otherwise we might have some issues. So what we could do is, because I'm thinking about, we're gonna sew this segment to this segment, and then we could sew this segment to this segment. And so that we don't have any weird folds, we need to make sure they're equal in length where we're gonna sew them. Okay, so looking here, this is 724.1 and this one is 811.1, and this here is 159.7. This is 174.3. So let's go ahead and fix these two segments first, okay, so that they are equal. So I'm just gonna go to my good old calculator, and I'm gonna go 811.1 minus 724.1 equals to 87. So what we need to do is we need to go to our edit pattern and then click on this point here, and we need this to move this up 87 millimeters above. All right, so that we could have 811.1. So just clicking, left click and then right click, and then this will pop up, so we could enter a value, and let's put in 87 and then press OK. Okay, now if you look, 811.0, 811.1, so that's pretty close to me. Okay, that's pretty good enough. And here we have 72.7 and here 74.3, so we could add another, maybe we could add 2 points here. So we could click this point, left click, drag, right click, and we could add, yeah, 2 would be fine. Press OK. So we got 74.7, 74.3. Okay, so we can go ahead and start sewing them. Let's go do that. So I'm gonna go to the segment sewing and sew this to this. All right, and you need to make sure that there's no crisscrossing, and if there's crisscrossing, remember to go to edit sewing. You just right click and reverse sewing. All right, going here and I'm going to sew this one to this one, and there's this crisscross. I'm gonna reverse that, and I also want to sew. I want to go ahead and just move this up a bit. That way when I sew this one to this one, I'm going to be able to see better if they are crisscrossing the sewing. So I'm going to go ahead and go to sewing here, click and click. Alright, everything's good. And for this one, could sew this to this and get a reversed. Okay, for this we could, for the fly, we could sew this here to this. Yeah, that will work, I think. But I think we need to make some changes here. Okay, so we got 160.1 here. We got 133.5. I think we could make some changes there. Yeah, we could make some changes there. So I'm just gonna go to the edit pattern and going to calculate these. 160.1 minus 133.5, so it's 26.7. So I'm just gonna click this point and just move it down, and for that I'm going to enter, what did I add there? 26, I believe. 26. Okay, I think it's 26.7. All right, that's good enough. And just going to just fix this up a bit. All right, so now going to sew this up. So this to this, there you go. And now going to the back pocket here, we need to sew this back pocket onto the back part of the pants. Okay, so this is the back part of the pants. And how are we gonna do this? In order for you to sew a clothing pattern on top of another clothing pattern, what you need to do is you need to make sure that you have an internal shape of this on the whatever you want to sew it onto. Okay, so to do that, let's go to our transform pattern and let's select this. Right click, clone. We're gonna have to clone this as an internal shape. Then we're gonna put that internal shape wherever we want that pattern to be sewn onto, which is gonna be right here. Okay, and of course you could move it if you need to. You could like rotate it by hovering your mouse over the top here. You could rotate a bit. And once again, you could always look here in your 3D view as you do this. And just move it. Okay, so now we could sew this together. Let's go and sew that up. Going to segment sewing. Sew this to that. And also this one to this one. Great. Okay, I'm gonna have to go back to that and fix the crisscrossing. And reverse sewing. Okay, good. Okay, now let's go ahead and do some, let's go ahead and simulate this. But you know what, before we simulate, let's go ahead and increase the size. I feel like it's going to be a little bit too tight when we simulate it. Let's go ahead and select everything here and then just scale it up a little bit. All right, and this one, we'll just move it up. Okay. And before we simulate, let's go ahead and select our geometry for our tank top. Hold shift, click, and let's go ahead and deactivate it. Right click, deactivate pattern only. So what that will do is it will stop it from moving. Basically what the word says. So we'll deactivate it, so when you click on simulate button, this is not gonna simulate along with the pants. Okay, and that's what we need if we want to focus more on the pants for now. Okay, later we're gonna be simulating them together. Okay, so let's check out what we have. Let's go ahead and simulate this. Let's go and click on simulate button. All right, and looks like everything is coming together. Let's go ahead and undo that. Control Z. Okay, let's go ahead and symmetry the pants on the other side. So let's go ahead and do that. Just gonna go to the back and front, select these. And we could do a symmetry. We're not gonna do a symmetry for the fly. We only need the fly on one side, okay? I'll show you what we need to do on the other side of the pants. But let's go and symmetry this. Right click, symmetry pattern with sewing, and move it here. And there it is. And of course, click, and let's go ahead and move it. And kind of farther apart. And we don't want the sewing to kind of overlap the character. And I think I want to go ahead and select these and just kind of move it to the right a bit so it's not overlapping each other. And I think it will fix each other. It will fix itself out when we simulate it. Let's go ahead and simulate this and see what we have. Click. All right. Control Z to undo. Let's go ahead and start sewing things at the back to just hold them together. Let's go sew this one to this one and this to this. Okay, great. And we could sew, let me just move, let's move the fly up a bit. Okay, so we could sew this to this part here. Let's go and sew those up. All right, and let's see what we got. Let's go ahead and simulate. Okay, good. And I think we do need to bring it up, make it bigger. I think we could make it bigger. So selecting everything here, and I want it a little bit loose, the pants. We could let's go ahead and simulate. There you go. And I want to lift it up a bit, so I'm simulating and then just kind of massage to lift it up a bit. There you go. So his butt is like holding the shape up, which is what we need. And I think it could be definitely a bit more baggy, so I'm just gonna go ahead and scale it. I do want it to be a little bit baggy. Okay. Alright, because I think I do want more folds. I think it'll look better with folds. Alright. Okay, something like that. Now, what we need to do is we need to create, we're going to use an internal line, and we're going to create an internal line to have a shape here similar to, let me show you. We're going to create an internal line to create this type of shape here. All right, this type of shape, and that shape that we're going to be creating here, we're going to have that zip up onto this here, this other side of the pants. Okay, we're going to have it sewn here, this part. Okay, so how we do that? Okay, I'm just first of all going to select this to make sure that I know which pants I'm working on. So I'm selecting this and this. You could see that this is the one that I'm looking at. You guys see the yellow outline? Okay, now I have to go to my fly, and I'm going to copy that. Actually, I'm not going to copy. I'm just going to right click, and I'm actually going to clone it as an internal shape. And I'm going to put it right here. Okay, as you can see, it's right there now. And I'm going to right click. I'm gonna go ahead and flip horizontally. There you go. So I have that similar shape as I see on the photo right here. Okay, that shape right there. And I'm just gonna go ahead and rotate this up a bit and move it. And I want to go to my edit pattern and click here, and I'm just gonna move it and move it. Gonna move it like this, and I think I'm gonna thin it out a bit. And this one, there you go. Okay, now what I see here, since I have, remember that we have done symmetry. Okay, we did a symmetry sewing with this pants and this pants here. Okay, so you could see now that since we have had symmetry turned on, that it had also, when we have created the internal line here, it had also created it here, and we don't want that. So what we need to do is we need to just go ahead and right click and remove link editing on one of these pants. And then let's go and select this and delete that one there. We only need it on this side. We only need it on this side of the pants here. Okay. And let me just go ahead and move this here. All right. Okay, now what we could do is we could sew this internal part, the segment for the internal line that we have just recently created. We could sew this. We could sew it onto this segment here. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just gonna go to my segment sewing, click here, and I'm gonna go here, click here. All right, and if we go ahead and check this out, we go ahead and simulate. Okay, there's some issue. All right, let's go ahead and undo that, okay, because right now this the fly here is sticking out and we don't want that. Control Z, there you go. All right, in order to remedy that, we're gonna have to make sure that when we simulate this, that this fly is actually underneath this clothing pattern, okay? In order to do that, let's go ahead and click here and let's go to our property editor, and you're going to see that we have layer, okay? So we're gonna make sure that it's at layer 0, which is what it is. And then for this part of the pants here, we're gonna make sure that it's at layer 1, so that this here, this is gonna be over when our pants simulate, this part of the pants is gonna be on top of this, okay? All right, so yeah, this is 1 layer and this one is gonna be 0. Good. And let's make sure that we just select the back part of the pants here, because it's going to, the back part of the pants is going to interact with the front part of the pants, and if these are different layers, we might have an issue. So let's go ahead and just freeze this for now. Right click and freeze it, so it's not going to simulate, it's not going to affect it when we simulate. And let's just go ahead and simulate this now. All right, now let's go ahead and fix this out a bit. We don't want his little friend to stick out. There you go. Good. All right, we got it. And we could just turn off simulation. Okay, great. Now we could go ahead and unfreeze this. Right click, unfreeze. And we could go ahead and select these pants and put it back to 0, so that when we simulate them all together, that they are fine. Okay, good. And another thing that we could do is we could add like the belt area here, like some seams here, kind of like what you see in this area here. Okay, a little bit more seams, a little bit more details. We're trying to simplify it, but I do want to show you some more tools that you're going to be using later on to when you create a more complex project. Let's first turn this off, and then select our tank top, and let's just go ahead and right click and go ahead and hide the 3D pattern so we can see better what we're working with the pants. Let's go ahead and use our 3D pattern line, okay? With the 3D pattern line will allow us to create lines right on the 3D mesh that we have here, okay? We could use it as a guide, and then later on we could convert it as an internal line. Let's go ahead and do that. Click here. And when we use the 3D line pattern, we're gonna do it pattern by pattern. So when we use this, we're gonna first create a line here, and then we're gonna be creating a separate line for this one. So because this is a separate clothing pattern from this one here, okay? And then same one for this is going to be another line, and then another separate line, okay? And as we go around, we're also going to create a separate line here and a separate line there. So let's go ahead and do that. So using the 3D line pattern, let's go ahead and click on here and then here. And if you mess up, you could always hit escape or Control Z. Let me do it again. I'm gonna click here and double click, and okay, okay, double click. There you go. So when you double click, it should turn into a yellow segment, okay? And let's go ahead and create all around. And then this one, I'm gonna make it from here to here, double click to end it. And I'm gonna start from here to here, double click to end it. And if it doesn't end, just double click again or undo, escape. Okay, so you need to make sure you're right on the mesh, and double click. There you go. And start again. There you go. Okay, and then we're gonna create it all around, guys. All right. And double click. And then starting from here and all the way to here. We don't want it, we want to still see it. And double click. Double click. Okay, if it doesn't work the first time, you need to make sure you zoom in, and you can make sure that it's right on the mesh and not overlapping with the other circle. Right there. There you go. Now we could go to our edit line. What we're gonna do is we're gonna hold shift and select all the lines that we created. Select them all. And then we could go ahead and convert these to internal lines so that we're gonna be able to use them here in the 2D view. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and right click and convert to internal shape. All right. Once that's done, you could see that it's been created on our 2D view. You could see it there. And I see that we have some duplicate, some overlapping internal lines here that needs to be fixed. So just gonna go ahead and select this. Looks like it's somewhere here, the overlapping. So make sure you double check. And I'm going to go to the edit pattern, like here. And I'm gonna click on shape 2D. So if you see that there are more than one 2D shapes, then you're gonna see something like this. So just choose the right one, which is the specified color. Press delete. And I also need to make sure that the point here, it's actually intersecting onto the segment there. And okay. And zooming into this one. Okay, good, it's intersecting. Because what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut and sew this up, okay? And we want to make sure that it's actually the points, the end points are actually intersecting onto the edges of the pattern, okay? And let's also check the others. Okay, looks like there's also extra ones here. Which one is this? Okay, this is the one. Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and delete that. Alright. Okay, so the points on the edge. Points on the edge, good. And let's go ahead and check these. So this needs to be fixed, and we need to move it so it's right on the edge. Okay, good. And I think I want to have him a little bit close. So move it down. Good. And then the next one is this here. Okay, so I want to make sure that it's right on the edge. And also this should be here. And this one here. Okay. Okay, I think everything is all good for that. And also this one is also good. Wait, I think I see a little bit overlapping. Let me see. Let me just double check. Ah, no, it's just one line, which is fine. Okay, so we got all the lines there. Now we need to go ahead and cut and sew them. Okay, so let's go ahead and select all the lines that are here. Hold shift. Select all the internal lines from the 3D lines that we have created. Okay, so the ones that are you're not able to select, that's because they are symmetry. All right, they're symmetrical with the other part of the pants. So that is fine. Whatever you do on one side of it, it's going to do it on the other. Okay, so let's go ahead and right click. And then let's go ahead and click on cut and sew. Okay, and once you do that, you could see now we have some nice seams here. Okay, and that's what that does. You could essentially create an internal line intersecting onto the clothing pattern, and then you could cut and sew, and you could create something like this. There you go. Another thing we could do is we could go ahead and add a button here. Let's go ahead and do that. You could go to the button right there and then click anywhere where you want that button to go. That's where I want it to go. And of course it looks like it's kind of floating, so I'm just gonna go to my move tool here, select move, click here, and then just gonna move it close, and you can rotate it, of course. Rotate it a bit. There you go. And what I want to do also is I want to create something with this fly here. Let's go ahead and do something, add a little bit of details here on the front. We could go and select, go to edit pattern here and double click, and then we could right click and let's do an offset as internal line, and we could set it to 5 and press OK. Okay, and we could go and scale it, clicking here and then scale. And what we could do is we could go and make sure that they are on the segment. Something like this and this. Okay, so make sure that they are actually on the edge. Remember, on the edge. And we could go to the edit curvature and gonna fix the curve here. I'm gonna go and select this. Okay, go ahead and curve this out. We need a little better curve here. There you go. Alright, there's no need to delete it. We just like move it. Okay, so we have like kind of like an inset here, and we're gonna do the same thing on this one here. We're gonna do like some kind of inset, so we could have like a little details like this as you see in 3D view. And I'm gonna go and right click, offset as internal line, press OK, and I'm gonna just go ahead and scale. Just go ahead and move it up, and going to make sure that it's on the edge or past the edge. Okay, I think that's fine. And we could go and make sure that they are actually straight, aligning up. So I'm just gonna go ahead and move it a bit. There you go. Same with this, just move it a bit. There's more. Okay, and we could go ahead and select them, and we could right click and cut and sew. Alright, and now we also have some nice details here, some more details. Let's go ahead and simulate this. Alright, great. Now if you want to create, if you want to go ahead and create something like this, you see this part of the pants. Okay, we could do that. I'll show you real quick how to do that. Let's go ahead and kind of rearrange this a bit so it's a little neater. Put them back in place. Let's go ahead and add more details to our pants. What we're gonna do to create that is we're gonna create a rectangular internal shape. We're gonna create it here. All right, and then we're gonna clone that as a pattern and then sew them together. Let's go ahead and do that. So we know we're gonna create it here, so it's gonna be right here, the rectangular shape. Let's go ahead and click on here and just click and drag. Okay, so that's where it's gonna be. And as you can see that I have left some space in between here and here, because you will see that later on we're gonna be creating a cloth pattern out of this, and then we're gonna sew them together. And in order for that to sew properly, you cannot have two edges of the segments sticking together, otherwise you're gonna have issues sewing a pattern on top of a pattern. You could bring them close if you want to, bring them close together, but not touching each other, something like that. It's fine. Okay, and let's go and double click, and we could clone this as a pattern. Clone as pattern, click here. And let's go and select the edge here and right click, and let's unfold that. And let's go ahead and create an internal line in the middle. Click here and point to point, double click. And the reason why we have created an internal line there, because they're gonna be folding together on each other. All right. That way we could have a little bit more thickness, some kind of design there going. And let's go and just go ahead and move this. You could press F to kind of zoom in to see what you're working with. And you just move it up. And then just go ahead and move it closer. There you go. And just gonna rotate if you need to. Okay, something like that. And let's go ahead and another thing what we do is, as I mentioned before, we need to have this, we gotta have it fold right there in the middle. Okay, in order to do that we need to go to our segment, click here, and for the fold angle, let's set it to about 5. Fold strength, fold strength is how much intense the folding will happen. So let's set it to 30. And we could do some stitching now. We could stitch. First of all, we need to go ahead and stitch this to this, because we do want them to fold in the middle, and that's why we have this line in the middle, so it will fold. And then we need to stitch this to this. And of course, let's reverse the sewing for that. And let's go and sew this one to this one. Reverse sewing. Okay, with that said, let's go and simulate this, see what we have. Okay, and let's go ahead and help this out. Looks like it needs some help with the assimilation. Okay, we have a little bit of dark shading issues there, so in order to fix that, let's go and select our mesh. And for the particle distance, we could just crank up the geometry by bringing down the particle distance to 10, and let's see how that works. Let's see. There you go. That's exactly what we need there. Okay, something like that. There you go. And we could, yeah, that's fine. Let me go ahead and check. Okay, looks like there is a hole. So if we don't want any hole there, what we could do is do some sewing. We could sew this to this and this to this. Let's check it out. There you go. And now when we go in and do this here and kind of pull that, There you go. There's no hole. All right. And now we could go ahead and select this internal line. We could copy that and we could paste it on the other side. Paste here. So we want it on the other side, and we could gonna move it here. A little bit closer here. Too close, something like this. And then just move it down a bit. Okay. And we could go ahead and select this. Not the segment, but just entire thing. And we could clone that. We could copy and go ahead and paste. Right there. Now, if you try to, let me just delete that. If you try to go here and you go to symmetric pattern sewing, okay, and it might not work if you go and move it here, okay. Okay, because the reason that it's not gonna work, because when we were doing this, we didn't really have symmetry turned on for these two. They're completely removed from each other's link. So that's why when we are doing this, instead of doing symmetrical sewing, we need to do copy and paste instead. And then we're gonna have to manually sew it. Okay. There you go, and just gonna go ahead and just rotate it. There you go. And okay, go ahead and sew them. So this one to, of course, this. Okay. And so this one to this. Great. And then go ahead and simulate. There you go. And that's what we have. Alright. Let's go to the move tool. Okay, so we got those details there. And of course, if you want to, let's say you want to add some stitches here, right? There is a way to add stitches here, and I'll show you that later. But for now, what we could do is we could kind of mess around with this, and so that we could add some more folds, just kind of massage it a bit so we could create more folds on these areas. And what we could also do is we could select everything that we have for the pants, and we could go to our jeans here, and let's go ahead and for the physical property, let's set it to denim, because right now I believe it's at cotton. Let's set it to denim raw, so that way it's going to simulate more like jeans. And with the jeans selected, let's go ahead and set the particle distance to 10, so we have more geometry to work with. And let's go ahead and check what we have. Let's simulate it. Okay, so you can see that we actually got nicer folds because we have increased the geometry for our pants. And that's what we need. That's what Marvelous Designer is for. You don't want to create something on Marvelous Designer and it doesn't have any details that you want. Okay, that's the point of having Marvelous Designer, so that you're able to get the details that you need here as much as you can. And I'm just gonna pull that out. And what I also want to do is I want to just bring that out. Okay. And let's go ahead and show our tank top now. Let's go and right click and show all 3D patterns. Select our tank top and let's go and right click and deactivate and activate it. Let's go and activate it. And let's go ahead and simulate it with the pants. All right, and got a little issue here. Okay, I don't want any issues. I'm just gonna go ahead and move that up, and this needs to come down. There you go. All right, something like that. And for our tank top, I want to check out what we have here for our particle distance. It's at 10. It is fine. Now let's say you want to, you could also hold W on your keyboard, and then you want to add a little bit more folds here where the knees are at. You could hold W on your keyboard and then just click and drag, and then that will create like a pin for you. You see how this orange color shape there, that's a pin that will hold on to that shape if you need to. Hold W, so that type of fold will stay in place if you need to. And if you don't like it there, you could always hold W again and then click on it to get rid of it. So you might want to add pins if there's some shape that you want to, some folds that you really want to keep intact. You could pin it. Okay, so maybe around that area I could just pin these areas if I want that shape there, okay, to stay. And so guys, that is how you create Cloth and Marvelous Designer. You can make the folds that you need in a quick and efficient way. Then later, you can export it out and add more details in ZBrush. Okay, now that we have created our clothing here in Marvelous Designer, we could go ahead and export them out and put them inside ZBrush. Now, before we export these out, we're going to have to quadrangulate these. Because right now, if you guys go and check out the wire, we do have it in triangles. It'll be a lot easier for us to work on this if we have them in quads, okay? So let's go ahead and quadrangulate this. Let's select all the meshes for our character clothing patterns. And to quadrangulate, let's right click on the 3D view. And let's click on quadrangulate, and just wait for a bit. This might take a few minutes for you all. And as you can see, they are no longer triangles. Let me just go back to my textured surface view. Okay, and as I mentioned before, we are going to be exporting this out one by one, the tank top by itself and also the pants by itself. So, selecting just the tank top, let's go and export. Go to File, Export, OBJ selected. And then you're gonna see this window pop up, okay? Now, you need to make sure select all patterns is unchecked, select all avatars not checked, select all graphics and trims. Yeah, you don't wanna have select all patterns checked because we only want the specific mesh that we have selected to be exported out. We don't want all the 3D patterns to be exported. And the select all avatars, we do not want the character mesh to be exported out because we have our own nick average in ZBrush that we already have there. And select all graphics and trims, that's if you have created a button or a zipper or buttonhole, you could export those out, okay? But right now, I'm not exporting out the button. I will do that later. So all these are unchecked. And make sure you have single object button radio turned on there, and make sure you have weld selected. What weld will do is any areas that you have on your pattern that you have sewed, those will be welded when you exported them out, and then you put it into ZBrush so that when you smooth it out, you're not going to have any gaps there. Okay? And yeah, they're going to be together, welded, merged. And then make sure you have it as thin, okay? We're gonna have our own thickness. We're gonna create our own thickness in ZBrush by extruding out the mesh, okay? But right now, we just need to make them thin, all right? And scale, we're gonna make sure that we are in centimeters, dash studio. That way it will work and fit properly onto our character. And then press OK. Okay, and once that's done, back in ZBrush, I'm just gonna go ahead and change the material for this to my basic material. This is what I'm used to looking at, easier on the eyes. And I'm gonna go ahead and append a sphere and select that sphere. And I'm gonna go ahead and import the mesh that I have exported out of Marvelous Designer. And there it is, it fits properly onto the character. And if we press Shift F on our keyboard, there's our wires. You could see they are quads. And what we need to do is we need to zero mesh this. Okay, right now it's not really clean, the geometry. So let's go ahead and zero mesh this. Let's go to our geometry. Let's go to zero mesher. And for the target polygon count, I like to increase it to a higher value. So when we zero mesh this, we could keep as much details as possible. So I'm just going to set the target poly count to 8 is fine. And I'm going to click on the zero mesher button and just wait for a bit. And there it is. Good. Nice and clean. And of course, you could also Shift F to turn off the polyframe. You could smooth this out and manipulate this if you need to clean this up, you can. All right. Any areas where you see any problems, you could smooth it out. Any sharp areas that you don't like to see. And of course, you could subdivide it so that it's smoother. Okay. And you could always go back and add more details to this. Use the ZBrush standard brush or damn standard brush to redefine the details on your tank top. Now let's go ahead and export out our pants. Okay. I'm gonna be exporting out the pants by itself, but these areas here of the pants, the detail here for the pants, I'm gonna export these out also separately, okay? Because what's gonna happen is this area of the pants here, the pants itself right there, we're gonna add thickness to that, okay? We're gonna be extruding it. And the thing is, we don't want any extrusion on this part of the pants because that already has thickness. Because remember, we had unfolded them and sewed them together. So yeah, this area of the pants does not have thickness. That's why I want to be able to just export that as a separate piece. Yeah, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to select this, and I'm just gonna export that. And I'm gonna call it pants details, and I'm gonna single object, weld thin and centimeters dash studio, and press OK. And then I'm gonna go ahead and select everything else on my pants except for this. I'm gonna press Shift to deselect that because we have already exported that. Okay, so we don't want to export these. All right. And another thing is the fly, this part of the pants, that part of the pants is the mesh that's underneath the front fly here. Okay, so we got this part of our clothing pattern, which is this here, and then we have another part here where this is sewn onto. Okay, and we might have some issues with zero meshing it if we have these overlapping each other. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna deselect this. I'm not gonna export this out. I'm just gonna leave that alone because we might have some issues in ZBrush. And what we're gonna do is we could just take the pants later on and extrude out the edges in Maya. All right, extrude it out so we got something there underneath the fly. Okay, if you need to. Okay, so selecting these, And I'm gonna go File, Export, OBJ selected. Okay, and gonna call this one pants. And it's asking if I want to export out the button. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna turn that off. I want to export out the button separately also. Single object, and for this one I don't want to weld the pants. Okay, I want to keep it unwelded. Okay, because I do want these to be, when I put these inside ZBrush, I want to be able to see the seams here. When I smooth this out, you see how there's like a lot of, there's some details here on the pants with the seams that we have created. I want to be able to keep those, okay? So I don't want to weld them, okay? And when I smooth it out, I want to be able to still see those seams. So unweld, and then just set it thin, centimeter-0, and press OK. And for the button, selecting the button, and I'm gonna go ahead and export. I'm gonna call this one button. Okay, and everything single object, unweld, thin, and yes. Okay, and then back to ZBrush. And I'm gonna go ahead and append another shape. Go to sphere, and then I'm gonna go ahead and import. Let me start out with the pants. And there's our pants there. And I'm gonna go ahead and append another shape. And then on that shape, I'm gonna go import pants details, and then I'm going to import what else do we have? The button. Yeah. Okay, so everything is there. Shift F on the keyboard, turn on polyframe. Okay, I could just, so we have a separate subtool for our tank top, separate subtool for the pants, separate subtool for the pant details, which is going to be this area of the pants, and we got the button. Okay, now I'm gonna go to my pants here. I'm gonna go ahead and zero mesh this, so we got much better geometry. I'm gonna go to geometry here, zero mesh, set the target polygon to 8, and I'm just gonna go click on zero mesher. There you go. All right, and I think we have a little bit of issue here. That's why it's always good to still bring this into another 3D program like 3ds Max or Maya and fix these. Okay, and this is what I want to do. So I'm gonna go to subtool with the pants here selected. I'm gonna export as an OBJ. Okay, and then we're here in Maya. I'm going to go ahead and import the OBJ file. This is here, pants. Okay, and there it is. There's the pants. Okay, and I do want to make some fixes, which is this here is a problem. Okay, I'm just gonna go to select this, and I'm gonna go ahead and delete that, and I'm gonna go to edge, and I'm just gonna go ahead and Control E. So extruding this out. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and weld, do some welding here. Gonna weld this to this. Gonna go to edit mesh and merge. There you go. Let's see here. Up, actually this is going to be on its own. It's fine, I don't need to do any welding with that. And of course this one is the same. I could go and delete this. Control E and extrude that down. Bring it down and move. Vertex selection mode. I'm going to do some welding. This to this. Yeah, and go ahead and merge. There you go. I'm just gonna go move. And for this, I could go to edge selection mode and select from here to here. And could go ahead and Control E and bring that out. And it's going to be the same for this one up to here. Okay, and I could just gonna move it back, Control E and extrude. So this is when you export things out of Marvelous Designer, it's not gonna be 100% perfect at all. You're gonna have to do some manipulation, okay? And of course, if you want to spend more time manipulating this, I suggest that you do that. Okay. So yeah, let's go ahead and export these out again. I'm gonna go and export these out. So generally you need to go here and refine everything in Maya. And after you do that, you could go and export this out again. And I'm gonna just call this one edit. And then back in ZBrush, we could replace this pants with a new one. And yes, and press OK. All right, so there you go. And if you have, you could see if you want to move this out, because I see that it looks like it's overlapping a little bit, the pocket. So what I could do is I could use the move topological brush and just gonna move it in or move it out. Same with here and here. Okay. Now, of course, we could go ahead and add some thickness. We could add some thickness on the pants. We could go to our Z modeler brush here. We could hover our mouse over a polygon, hold the space bar, make sure you have for the target all polygons, and make sure that you have extrude. All right, now if you might want to double check, I'm gonna go hold my space bar again. I'm gonna set it to all polygons again, because looks like when I set it to extrude, I had set it back to a single poly. So make sure you have all polygons and extrude. Yep, everything's good. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and display properties. Make sure you have turn on double-sided. That way, if you turn on solo, if you have this on, you could see the mesh inside. Okay. And we could go ahead and hover our mouse over a polygon and then push in. There you go. Not too much, maybe something like that. It's fine. Okay, so we got some thickness there on the mesh. Now, I'm just going to turn off polyframe. If we go to our geometry and if we subdivide this, You see how we got a little bit of issue here. It's too much gap and the geometry is kind of messy. Let me just undo that. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to add some edge loops. Okay, that way it will hold the edges. So you're still using the Z modeler. You could hover your mouse over an edge and then just click and drag, and you could add like a swift loop there, an edge loop, so that it will retain its shape. So like an issue like this here, you can take the time to delete this here in ZBrush or in Maya. But right now, this is just a simple project, and I'm just trying to show you the overall process. If you want, you could spend more time on this practice, perfect yours, and just get a hang of it. I'm gonna go ahead and add this, and this here. So just adding these so that they wouldn't melt down when you smooth this out. Okay, when you smooth out those edges. Of course, if you want to do this and add those edge loops in Maya, then go ahead and do that if that's what you're used to and you have more control of it. Okay, so this is just a quick way so that I could show you my workflow. When it's time for us to create our main project, we will take way more time on it to make it look professional. Add here. And also, let's not forget the ones on the side, the other side. Gonna add edge loop here and here, here and here. Okay. And also at the back, could add some edge loop here. Also edge loop here and here. So you gotta tighten those so these wouldn't melt down when you smooth it. Okay. And let's see what we have when we subdivide. Let's go ahead and divide it. There you go. And a little issue here, I could just undo that. I think I could add some more swift loops around this area, of course. Yeah, hold its shape together. There you go. And subdivide. Okay, that's better. And of course, if you want to take your time and add some details using the ZBrush standard brush, damn standard brush, you could do that. And I'm just gonna turn this off and going here, and I could also subdivide this one and going to the tank top. For the tank top, I believe, let me see here, going to turn on double-sided. Okay, so it looks like we also need to add some thickness here, so I'm gonna go back to the geometry. I'm just gonna go ahead and delete the subdivision level. What you need to do is you need to make sure that it's best to extrude out and add thickness before you subdivide it. Okay? So I'm just gonna bring it all the way to subdivision 1. I'm just gonna delete higher, so got rid of the subdivision level. And of course, going to my Z modeler brush, and we're gonna add thickness to this. Hover the mouse over a polygon and push in. There you go for thickness. And go ahead and subdivide. There you go. Okay, so that is how you add your clothing from Marvelous Designer onto your ZBrush character that you have sculpted. Now, another thing that I want to show you guys before we wrap this tutorial up is, let's say that you want to add extra details on your clothing and you want to use the sculpting brush and ZBrush to sculpt out the folds. And let's say that you have the clay tool brush on or any brush there, and you try to sculpt on it, and you see that it's not affecting the mesh too much. Like some parts of it you don't see it working. You don't see the brush taking influence on the mesh. So how do you fix an issue like this if you're having problems sculpting on the mesh? Okay, this is what you guys have to do. If you guys scroll down here, you're gonna see display properties. What you're gonna need to do is you need to click on flip. This will flip the normals of the geometry. Okay, so what we could even do is turn on solo, Shift F on the keyboard, turn on polyframe, and let's go ahead and click on the flip button. And it's gonna say that this function requires the highest subdivision level to be active. So let's go to our geometry and make sure let's crank it all the way up the subdivision level. And let's go back to our display properties and click on flip. And just wait for a bit. Okay, so now just turn off polyframe and back on my clay tool brush. And if I start sculpting, now everything is working of how it's supposed to. Okay. So if you're having trouble like that and you want to fix that, all you got to do is flip the normals. Sometimes issues like that happen when you are extruding using Modular, but that's going to be an easy fix, guys. And that is how you tackle that type of problem. And after you all use Marvelous Designer, I highly suggest that you take your mesh inside ZBrush to further make the folds pop out and make them look more realistic. And that's about it for the introduction to Marvelous Designer.